What's the good word, everybody? It's your boy DKB in here. We have our first mock draft of the year popping off. So it's exciting, right? We have a few picks going on. We're only doing a 3 round mock today, so 2 selections, pending any surprises and fun that we have going on with trade situations. But let's go ahead and get into it here temporarily. Welcome back. Been a while since I've done any live streams. Really a couple of days since I dropped any videos. But as mentioned, we are jumping into our mock draft here. First one of the year, only a 3 rounder. Just because some of the limitations I seen. I'm doing PFF today. I think Pro Football Network is the other one, but they don't seem to have our draft picks completely accurate. They gave us like 8 draft picks for some reason. We only have 5 right now prior to any compensatory picks. So we'll see what happens. I see a couple of you guys in here. Dakota, what's good? I see a lot of some of the fan favorite selections in here. Roman Wilson's a sneaky favorite one that I've been catching up on. Wild Wave, what's good, my guy? It's been a minute. Excuse me as well. The voice, you guys are hearing a lot of sniffles. My allergies are going wild today. But without any further hesitation, let's go ahead and get things cracking. I haven't tested any of this either, so I don't know what kind of picks have been getting what the general selections ahead of us are. My expectations are we'll probably see 3 QBs come off, right? Harrison will probably be gone. Joe Alt will probably be gone. I imagine Malik Neighbors will probably be gone. But let's go ahead and see what happens here. Hey, you know what? I'm I'm guessing this is the first time you guys just heard me. I just checked my mic. Apologies. Okay. Let me rewind real quick and get back into some things since people might not have caught the beginning stages of this. 3 round mock draft, of course. We're doing PFF because Pro Football Network doesn't have our draft picks accurate. For some reason, we have 8. Otherwise, I would have did a full 7-round mock. You guys might hear some sniffles and stuff. My allergies have been crazy, so please work with me. And then this is really the first run through, right? Obviously, my first mock of the season, but I haven't done any test runs or anything. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the board falls for us. I think as expected, though, you see Caleb Williams, Drake May. I think the huge shocker, and this, there's no world where I see this realistically happen, right? Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, for what it's worth, in any other draft cycle, Malik Neighbors is far and away probably the top wide receiver prospect on the board. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to, I don't think there's anybody not giving him the franchise player, generational prospect type tab. So interesting. I don't know what the logic here would be on that, unless they just really think Malik Neighbors is the better long-term I don't know. The floor and the ceiling with Marvin Harrison is ridiculous, though. Malik Neighbors, very good, very elite prospect. But yeah, I don't know how you pick Malik Neighbors over him. Either way, though, good on the Cardinals. They're able to still go and land their guy. Gerard Davis, appreciate you coming in, my guy. Let's take a look at who else we got here. Joe Alt went to the Titans, so that's interesting. Sorry, they went to the Chargers. Joe Alt to the Chargers is interesting just because I feel like things are pretty open for them. I know they need a lot of defensive help as well. Offensively, they seem pretty good. They just haven't been able to get over the hump. I think that's been more of a coaching issue than anything else. So they really can The Chargers is where I think things can break open. They really can do a number of any kind of moves. But we do see our tackle come off the board early. Cooper DeJean, interesting, only because I know he's like the first white cornerback to be drafted in the first round in like 50 plus years or something crazy. Good on him. Roma Dunze goes to the Titans, who also needed tackle help. So interesting, they skipped Fashanu, Jaden Daniels to the Falcons. So we're not going to get any of the top three guys that dropped to us. And okay, so we're in about the situation that I thought we would be, right? We have the top two guys, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu off the board as our top tackle options. None of the top three quarterbacks people generally think are elite have dropped to us. And three of the best wide receivers, or at least the top ones that people feel are top 10 picks, are gone. Well, Wave, I see you're already mentioning Brock Bowers. Here's the thing. There's two ways to look at this, right? The first thing is when it comes to Brock Bowers, the first scenario is you have an offense that is done so poorly, and not necessarily for a lack of talent, but just overall, everything from the players that we acquired for the season to the coaching of those players for the season, to maybe the confidence of the players to actually make the scheme work, right? Failures all across the board, underperforming players, et cetera, et cetera. The first school of thought here for me would be you go out and get the best talent, no matter what it is on offense, and figure out a way to make it work, right? That's the most realistic situation where I can see Brock Bowers here being a realistic option for the Jets. The second piece would be, though, you really aren't moving the needle, I think, in any significant fashion by getting Brock Bowers, right? If we can, even with Garrett Wilson hitting a back-to-back 1,000-yard, season, even with Breece Hall hitting 1,500 plus scrimmage yards, there's a case to be made that everybody on the offense still underperformed due to the quarterbacks, right? And then due to the coaching. They haven't been put in great positions. So even though you're acquiring a potential great talent in Brock Bowers, he could go to waste, right? I think offensive line-wise would still have to be, if it's me, if I'm playing GM here, which I am, offensive line would have to be the main priority at every pick, and then you would have to determine if there's a better one. But I think with this first round, you would almost have to pencil in an offensive lineman unless you get to a situation like we're in right now. He's a weapon and he can block. Most importantly, best player available. Yeah, for sure. I think in most situations, Brock Bowers would be the correct pick, especially since it's not really an argument that he's not a top 10 worthy tight end, which is usually rare. It's more so what is going to help the New York Jets the most. Him as a weapon, great. Him blocking is also awesome, but I don't know if getting the best tight end would make as much of an impact as getting the third best tackle, right? I think that's going to be one of the more critical conversations that come up. Who do you have more faith in, Ron Middleton or Keith Carter? Yeah, Ron Middleton, 100%. To be fair, though, I knew that Carter had some issues with players and how they are being used, or at least how the practices are operating and stuff. I still think he was a pretty good coach, right? That Titans offensive line was anywhere from elite to rock solid for the majority of his tenure there. So there is something to him. He just might not be really a player's coach kind of guy. Fuaga at 10. I think obviously that is kind of the expected move, right? If we go edge, I'm going to go crazy. We do need a guy to pair with Quentin Williams, right? But I don't think anybody really wants to see a highly drafted defensive player here. We talked about this in one of my recent videos, but I think it's worth mentioning, right? Um, Essentially, it'll boil down to we've had an elite defense, right? It might not be historical and all that fun stuff people make fun of, but we've had an elite defense and we've had some average performances, mostly terrible, and then one or two exceptional games out of offense. But basically, the defense has only been able to win us 7 games. We have to help out the offense here. So when I'm taking a look at things, I really would consider Brock Bowers here. I would consider Talise Fuaga. Um, it looks like the Cowboys would be the only people willing to trade with us based on who's on the board. In a trade back scenario, we jump all the way to 24. I would assume, though, with that much of a jump, you can probably get obviously the first round swap. We should be able to get a second rounder. I would imagine you could probably fleece another day 3 pick or two out of them. I don't really want to dive into pulling out the what do you call it, trade value chart, but let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick. Uh, NFL trade. Here we go. So let's see. I am just looking at. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen for you guys just so I can keep the mock draft simulator here. But I'm looking at Pro Football References trade chart. We have the 10th pick, which is worth 1,300 points. The Cowboys are at 24, which is worth 740. So what are we looking at? All right, 560 point differential. That would be the equivalent of definitely a second rounder because the 32nd pick is worth 590 points. So there is a scenario where this could work out, right? If we wanted to trade back, at least based in this specific instance, we should be able to get a second rounder. And because the Cowboys are picking 56th, which this only gives me 1 through 32. Let me see if I can drill down further. Yeah, it's not showing me any further. Let me see if I can see something different. Okay, Cowboys in round 2. Their second rounder would be worth 340 points. Which would still give us 220 points of a difference. So, okay, theoretically, we might be able to make this work, right? I want to kind of talk through this and consider this. So, to trade up to our 10th pick, the Cowboys at the very minimum would have to give up their first and their second. And their third round is 155. This feels like a lot of compensation. So to make up the difference, Dallas would basically have to give us first, second. It doesn't seem so realistic. Dallas will basically have to give us their first, second round pick. They'd have to give us their third round. And then based on the value chart, they would still have to give us like an extra pick or two in this draft, or they'd have to give up something like a mid pick in next year's draft. Top 10 guarantees a plug and play starter, like a blue chipper. That's what we need. You're going to have to move JD out of 10 if you want that pick. Yeah, I don't know. So I know some of the rumors that are out there about we really like Fuaga. We've been looking at Tyler Guyton, right? If you take a look at the tackles. So I dropped 5 scouting breakdowns so far. So I am fully comfortable with what I know about Joe Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga, Lathan, and I covered Amarius Mims. There's still some guys that I want to look into, but I kind of want to start dropping some videos on other positions too. Probably starting with wide receivers for us. But Talise Fuaga and JC Latham aren't completely different in terms of skill sets or what they would bring to the Jets. So excuse me. So I would be comfortable with either one of these two guys, right? If we wanted to either select them right now, I would probably take either one at this pick, to be honest, or if you wanted to trade down. Talise Fuaga, I think, offers the best combination of safety. Appreciate you, Wild Wave. He offers the best combination of safety in terms of being a pass protector. He offers you the elite upside of being a run blocker. And I believe JC Latham has him beaten out in terms of being a size 6'6", 334. Yeah, Latham has him beat by like 30 pounds or so. If I remember correctly, he's like 360. Maybe I'm thinking about Mims. Thought one of these guys was about 360-ish. Either way, Fuaga and Latham, I think, kind of offers somewhat of the same skill sets. JC Latham, he's just not as consistently sound in pass protection. And then when it comes to Amarius Mims, I think this is a situation where you have to trade down if that's going to be the guy that we draft, right? And him, you're betting on the huge upside. So this is kind of like another Mekhi Becton type pick. I know people have stigma about Alabama offensive linemen too. I would probably lean right now because I'm not loving the prospect of dropping down with the Cowboys, although I do want those extra picks. I do also want something that's a little bit realistic here. Ty, what's good, my man? I've been all right living. I've been catching a couple injuries and whatnot, but all good. I think realistically, and let me just see what we have at wide receiver real quick again. Here's the thing. If we trade down, right, there's a couple of tackles, there's a couple of wide receivers that I would like. If you trade back, though, I think if you trade back, you're better off trying to invest in wide receiver than tackle, right? Once you miss out on these first couple guys, the fall off isn't that steep, but then kind of to your point, right? You're not really getting a plug and play guy. And realistically, that's what we need. You take a look at free agency with some of the options that are out there between either recent performances or injury histories. You don't really have a 100% set in stone starter. Still a lot of question marks about what we want to do with like Mekhi Becton and stuff. So this is one of those times where a first rounder in general, you want it to you kind of already want to know what your plan is here. Um, I if I was going to trade back, the only guys that I would be hoping would be on the board for us is Brian Thomas Jr. here at wide receiver. I'm also a big Troy Franklin fan right now. Or I would be hoping that we have an Amarius Mims or a Tyler Guyton there, which I kind of expect, but that's not something I'm really willing to bet against. Yeah, everybody wants Joe Douglas to trade down in this particular draft, but I just can't really see how we pull that off. It's already going to be tough to expect a second round pick unless you are trading with somebody in like the middle portion of the 20s or so. So yeah, I think Fuaga is going to be our pick. JC Latham looked elite during the Super Bowl. I don't know about elite. He definitely looked comfortable. Fuaga looked really, really good in the Senior Bowl too. There's actually a few guys from the Senior Bowl. There's a couple of guys from the Shrine Bowl I really like too. Yep, let's do it. We are going to make Talise Fuaga our guy. He's going to actually get to block for Aaron Rodgers this year. See, and then Brock Bowers goes right after us. I'll stop this once we get to 32 just so I can kind of see how things panned out. But I don't think we made any kind of I don't think us not trading back, we missed out. So let's see. Brock Bowers went right after us, so he's definitely not dropping far, at least in terms of this mock. I'm not worried about any quarterbacks in round one unless we did see one of the top three guys go. If Jaden Daniels is there, or you have a Drake May for some reason, or even a Caleb Williams, that has to be strong consideration. I know we don't like absolutely need a quarterback right now, but if you can get one of those guys and they're getting a chance to sit and don't have to be thrown into the fire, maybe you only play them in blowout games or something, that's perfect. That's perfect. You're setting yourself up from the future, even though you're taking a little bit of a hit right now. You've seen how some of the quarterbacks can kind of transcend these bad offensive lines. Cornerbacks are coming off a little bit of a run. We don't need any edge guys. Brian Thomas would have came off before our potential trade with the Cowboys. Latham goes much later than expected to the Dolphins. There's another interesting scenario, and I don't want to do this because I hate how much we've been having to kind of shift guys around. Jackson Powers Johnson was a guy that was getting a lot of love in the Senior Bowl, and for good reason. If you want to talk about elite, like he went out there and really dominated people on the board. So the thought process would be, because you've already seen our guy, Titman, be able to play well at guard. He played well at center. He kind of looks like he has that all-star AVT type ability. You can take a flyer on a guy like Jackson Power Johnson and kind of really build out the best line of versatility, right? He'll be a stud at guard. He'll be a stud at center. And then you can really kind of play your best hand here would be the thought. Not the way I want to go. Obviously, I think we need much more help at tackle than on the interior, but we don't know what's going to happen with Tomlinson yet. And either way, it gives you a little bit more certainty, but Troy Franklin comes off. So, okay, we could have had one of the two wide receivers I would have been fine with there. Amarius Mims to the Bills. So this mock draft's a little bit interesting because the tackles, none of them really came off around the area I would have necessarily expected them to, except maybe our guy Fuaga. But I can't say we really missed out on anybody of significance here, right? One of the few advantages playing into our hands here is that the wide receiver class is so deep there's potential number one guys heading into the second round, and then there's potential number two guys probably going all the way into like the early stages of round four. So for us saying that we need a running mate for like Garrett Wilson, depending on who we pick up in free agency, there's still great opportunities to find a strong pairing for him. So nonetheless, no second round pick for us. I'm not running through any potential like Bryce Huff trades or anything with this one. So we're just going to be sitting out these next 32 picks. But let's see if anybody interesting potentially falls to us. I'm already seeing a ton of names that people are going to be sad about us missing. Okay. Second round is done. Troy Fatanu, he's a guy. Tyler Guyton, freak athlete. There's going to be a ton of wide receivers here that people are going to be upset about. Michael Penix. Oh yeah, because we didn't. We only had 4 guys go off the board in the first round. Okay, Michael Penix here, not a bad pickup for them. Zach Frazier, Keon Coleman, Devontae Walker. Even though he had a very rough Senior Bowl, is still a guy that I would have loved to have seen been there in the third round for us. He's just a dude. I think he had like 5 or 6 games with over 130 plus yards once he finally got back from that NCAA eligibility appeal. He's a guy that I thought could have been a really nice pairing with Garrett. Graham Barton's gone, Jalen Polk, Christian Haynes, Patrick Paul. So there's still some Ricky Pearsall. That would have been a guy I would have looked to target in round 3. I'm curious too, what do you guys think about starting to lean towards quarterback here, or double dipping into offensive line, or finally starting to look at wide receiver options? Because when I kind of thought about my idea going into this mock draft, depending on how things played out, I am definitely a fan of double dipping into the offensive line pool here. Huff or Reed. Yeah, I wouldn't want to touch the cornerback group. If Huff can fetch you a second rounder, though, I think you try to make it happen. Let me see. We got 7 picks ahead of us. Let me not do this in advance. Let me just get to our pick. Let me not hype myself up for something. God. So quite a few names here just went off the board that I really would have liked to have seen there. Brendan Rice is a guy for me that I think is underrated. Wouldn't necessarily have to ball out the way many people would expect him to as a Hall of Famer son right out the gate. But a strong option, seems to have really good hands, not necessarily a body catcher. The one that hurts is Dominic Puny as a additional offensive line option. The guy's versatility is crazy. He literally can play all 5 positions on the offensive line, has the body size to not be a detriment at any one of those positions. Super aggressive. I thought he was an underrated guy that might fly under the radar here. And then, of course, Roman Wilson. He had himself quite a off season so far, too. Okay. We have a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy on the board. There's a guy, Joe Campione, that comments on most of the videos. This is his guy. especially with him being able to sit. I'm surprised he's still here, to be honest. I'm not worried about safety. I'm not worried about running backs at all. I'm not worried about edge guys at this point. I feel like unless you get a huge value at a position of need on defense, we still need to focus on the offensive side of the ball here. The problem will be it's not necessarily looking great that the value is going to meet up, right? I think almost every position here right now is going to look like a bit of a reach. That is tough. I don't love the tackle options right now. Christian Jones, I think, will end up going above some of these guys. Cooper Beebe would be a pretty solid guard for us, although I haven't caught up on any of the guards yet. Six four 335. Christian Mahogany, I'm aware of just because I was covering Shrine Bowl stuff, but he looks like he's more of a a gap style player than something for his own offense. Yeah, Wild Wave, I'm kind of with you. I think this was going to be too early for me in terms of quarterbacks, but there's really only 5 guys on this list. Excuse me. There's really only 5 guys on this list that excuse me. JJ McCarthy, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, obviously. He had that perfect Senior Bowl outing. And then probably Jordan Travis, right? Devin Leary was the best quarterback at the Shrine Bowl, but they were all bad. Sam Hartman looks serviceable, but if I had to put my finger on it, I would imagine he's closer to like an Aiden O'Connell than anybody you could really draft and say, here's the keys to the franchise. There's also everybody that's generally saying we need to take a flyer on Joe Milton. Excuse me. I am not a fan of Joe Milton. I think he has all of the physical talent in the world, but this isn't like a Lamar a Lamar Jackson type situation. I know people have been playing around because I think size wise he's kind of built like a tight end. Yeah, 6'5", 235, obviously a little bit lighter, but people have been asking him to kind of try out as like a tight end or something. I think he's pushing back on that. But yeah, coming from an offense that has no NFL principles in it, you're raw all over the place. The only thing you can really do is throw a football really far with a lot of velocity. I don't love it. So I'm surprised that I might have to lean into this, but the way the board has fallen and the fact that we still may be able to get ourselves a Christian Jones later. I like Julian Pearl. We have a Javon Foster on here. There's still a couple of names at tackle that I really like. They might not be starters right away, but we already have us a guy in Fuaga. These are other. Here's the other thing. When it comes to the tackles, by the way, my thought process is, let's imagine we did trade back and miss out on a Fuaga or something. At that point, I don't think you have any surefire day one starters. So the plan to me would be you go out there and get the most athletic guys that fit your offensive profile possible, and see if you can survive that way, right? It's not the best approach, but it would be nice to have some physical specimens that you aren't just going to find every draft, and you figure out a way to get them coached up. Um, so I think that might be the way they need to approach things. Looking here, guard isn't so drastic of a need for me that I think we need to pick that position so far. Yeah, I safety will be a need. Inside, DTs will be a need. There's still some guys I really like here. Yeah, I am going to say we're going to draft JJ McCarthy. Wow. It's just now hitting me. Yeah, this this got crazy for me. Okay. JJ is going to be our pick. I want to see how the rest of round 3 is going to play out. Um, that's nuts. Wide receiver I already talked about being super deep, so I'm not really concerned about who we can find there just yet. But Dolphins had a forfeited pick. Oh yeah, they did have some kind of drama this year, huh? That's insane. Do we did I miss it, or do we not get draft picks for this because I'm not subscribed? Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that. Okay, so this ends up being our 2 players selected in a 3-round mock. We come away with a starter at tackle. At the worst case scenario with Talise Fuaga, or Talisa Fuaga, anyways, you have a dominant run blocker. He can pull off everything you want to in a running scheme, so there shouldn't be any kind of fall off there or disappointment. As a pass protector, you have a guy that at the minimum is going to be extremely solid for you. He may get beat, right? I can see him giving up maybe 5 sacks on the year in year 1, but you've seen pretty gradual to dramatic improvements with Fuaga over his last couple years in college, right? Pretty athletic for his build as well. So you feel really, really good about the upside with him. But the most important piece, like we touched on, is that he has a high floor. This is a guy that even if he doesn't become like a top 10 pass protector in the NFL, he's still going to go out there and be one of the better tackles for you, especially if you rely more on the running game, which I think we should be doing. JJ McCarthy was a surprise. Not only that he lasted into the 3rd round, but that from a value perspective, he was going to be the best option for us, right? JJ McCarthy has to be looked at as the quarterback of the future. One of the other elements that I really love, without knowing a ton about his game, because I haven't been researching a lot of the guys I expected to go early at quarterback. JJ McCarthy's been under the tutelage of Harbaugh. Any program Harbaugh's gone to has been turned into a success, right? So even for whatever flaws JJ McCarthy's film may have, you're still getting a guy that's been coached extremely well coming in. And so you also love that element about it. I like it. I mean, it's not where I would have expected us to take a quarterback. Again, I still would have rather targeted somebody in like the 4th or 5th round. But let me see, is this only showing the first 32? That's trash. Okay. Yeah, either way, I think what we saw Penix come off in the 2nd. Bo Nix and the other 3 guys went off in the 1st. We got McCarthy in the 3rd. And then you had Spencer Rattler and some of the other guys. So yeah, nobody looked like they're lasting outside of the first 3 rounds, right? So anybody really after that, it seems like you're taking a swing on anyways. So I'm fine with this, right? The only upsetting piece is that I'm gonna end up having to drop a 7 round mock here at some point for sure. With some trades, because I think this would have been a more interesting selection if we had that 2nd round choice. Or if we had maybe some more legitimate 1st round trade back options. But I think we came out here really, really good, right? You have, and I think JJ McCarthy could be a strong backup quarterback option right out of the gate. So you also have that as a plus. Um, and that's including the fact that we're planning on, actually, this might be a really, really good thing for us, right? You have your quarterback of the future. I think he could be a solid backup quarterback in his rookie year, especially under tutelage of Rodgers. But we also plan on bringing in a veteran. So you're not even just giving JJ McCarthy the keys. You're seeing if he can actually beat out a veteran quarterback for the backup quarterback job, right? So that automatically right there will give you a great indicator of where he is in his development, and how much you can put on his plate early. Um, and then kind of build out his flight plan, if you will. I like it. There were still plenty of options at wide receiver and stuff. Heading into the 4th rounds, we start getting some of those. Keep in mind, we still have some of those comp picks that should be coming, although I believe, based on expectations now, they're all supposed to be coming in like the 7th round. And I think the final one is either going to be the mystery relevant pick or we get nothing. But I don't hate this. I don't hate this. If JJ McCarthy wasn't there, I think we would have reached a little bit and got a guy like Cooper Beebe. Or I would have seriously looked at one of the wide receivers at that point. Yeah, I don't think I'm considering anybody on defense unless I just recognize ridiculous value until we start getting into like the 5th round and later. So I love it. I love what we came away with here. You guys let me know ultimately what you think. I think the hope here would be, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but I think you still hope you can get a Fashanu at pick 10. Yeah, we need a 2nd round pick bad. I'm trying to think how else we can do it without necessarily having to do like a tag and trade situation with Bryce Huff. But yeah, outside of trading back and dropping into the 20s, and then at that point you're playing guessing games with any of the talent that's not necessarily an offensive tackle, right? The wide receivers you feel really good about. The tackles, you start running into experience issues, some sketchy injury histories, and then guys that really aren't dominant in one particular facet, right? They're just beasts of a physical specimen. So I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and cap it off here, though, guys, so I can wrap up some quick lunch and get back to work, though. Appreciate you guys that came through. I will be dropping some more videos here soon. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think, again, we came out pretty well, but I'll catch you guys again. Peace.